This is a brief tutorial on how to set up your own drum loops or drum track in your whatever software you might have. I have Sonar X1. And just a little bit on the screen. These are the measure divisors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is the keyboard that is the note designator, where you might find that it's the equivalent, the MIDI notes. You can get templates to overlay the drum sounds. I'm not going to get into a lot of software how-to. This is how to set up drums and come up with a beat to use in your recording. Okay, so I placed a loop here in Sonar. It's done by dragging to select an area along this ruler, right-clicking and setting the loop. So again, the mechanics, that depends on your software. I think most of this holds true. There is a method for looping, a method for selecting your notes, etc. So in order to make this easier up close, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and set this so that I can see only the two loops, the two measures that I am going to work with. And I usually set these up somewhere in the start. I like to go around 5N to give it some quiet time to get set. When you start recording, you need time to get your hands on the instrument before the music starts. So you can put as much as you like or not like. So essentially, to do this, whatever method your software uses, you add notes or take away notes. In this case, holding down the Alt does that. Right-click removes. Okay, if you look here, there's a measure and there's a measure, and there's 4 lines here. Each one of those is the beat. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want a good basic starting beat, the bass drum strikes on the 1. So here's the first measure. At the beginning of that measure is the bass drum. And let's do another one at the first section of the measure. So we got 1, 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, bass 2, 3, 4, bass 2, 3, 4. As it loops, sounds something like this. Okay, depending on your drummer's preferences, but a good basic beat is to start with a hi-hat on each of the counts. That kind of taps out the meter. So we find a good hi-hat sound. There it is, and we'll put one at the beginning of each count in these measures. And this is just for a basic 4/4 beat. If you were doing a waltz beat, you would modify it to be 3 counts. And some software doesn't allow for that. Sonar does. You can set it to be only 3 sections in a measure. But anyway, we put at the beginning of each count in the measure, we put a hi-hat strike so that it sounds like this. Okay, and then your backbeat or your snare beat is usually on the 3. That can be anywhere you want it to, depends on what you're trying to do. But most of the time it's on 3, so we'll add 2 snare drums. And I do this so that I can allow for variation. That's why I set it up with 2. I can allow for some variation in the bass beat, the drums, etc. So now we have a basic 4/4 beat. I think I'll move that up just a little bit, just to get it where it plays a little faster. Not quite enough. Let's try 180. There you go. Now we can change up the beat. Let's say we just want an alternating double bass, so we can add one there and listen to that. If you add one here, you can get double bass on each pass. Depends on what it is you're looking for in the music. If you want to jazz it up a little bit, you can add a little bit right here. Let me take the snap off. Okay, so now we can take this one out. So establishing the meter with the hi-hat and the backbeat on the snare, you have a basic beat, and it depends on what you do with this, where it goes, what it sounds like. I can add this one in over here and have the double beat with the kick to it. Pretty common beat in the 60s was using the bass drum on every strike except the snare drum, and that sounds something like this. Okay. Drum rolls, they depend precisely on what you want to hear. So a drum roll stays in count with everything that you've got here. So if I wanted to do a basic drum roll, I can run this up to a tom. So the count is 1, 2, and then I'm going to do just a basic 4. And a drummer can't play hi-hat while he plays toms with both hands. So unless he uses his foot. But at any rate, we're just going to add in 4 of these. So if you notice, we're playing on the measure and halfway in between. And then we want a cymbal crash to follow that, so we'll find one of those. Now we have a roll followed by a cymbal crash. Sounds something like this. So one can get as creative as they want. You can put in higher toms, have a descending type sound. If you want to add a little bit of a kick to that, you can throw a kick in here. And that is the basis for the drums and how to set up a loop, make it sound however you want it to sound. So just to recap, the major lines are the major markers. So we are looking at looped here with these yellow. We're looking at 2 measures. Each one's divided into 4. And that's counts. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We place a hi-hat on each one of those, and in this case it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and then I put in a roll. The bass drum can be on the 1 usually, so if you put one on 1 here and 1 here, you've got enough. You can take these out and just have the basic. There you go. So that sounds like this. So there you've got, that's kind of how it's done. If you look at your rolls again, this one's based on 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got on the measure, and then halfway between. So it makes 4 strikes within 2 counts of the 4 count measure. So the drums are mathematical. They're set on a 4 count or a 3 count, depends on your music. And that is about as hard as it gets. If you were going to finish this out, you would simply duplicate this for as long as you needed it in the song. What I usually would do if I'm just building a track to start writing the song, and then I come back later and do the drums, in detail, you can just copy this whole setup. And so in Sonar, it's like this. You copy automation tracks, and then you put it here, and wherever you want to start, you specify, I want 12 measures and you want to start at exactly 7. And then when you do that, you have a continuous drum set, and you can start your beat and play along and play your bass line, your guitar line. In this case, I've got this repeating roll. That wouldn't be there, but that is as difficult as it gets. If you remember that the drums are on a 4 count, there's 4 counts in a measure, and then you place your bass drum on the 1 and the snare on the 3. That'll give you a basic beat. Put your hi-hat at each measure, at each count in the measure, and then that would give you a basic 4/4 beat. Then you begin to improvise and add in strikes on the various drums, keeping in mind, stay with the count or in between the count. Triplets, you would divide it by 3, so you would put one here, here, and here to get a triplet in that measure. So that's the end of this tutorial. Thank you.